Oh, hey there, what's up? Leo from Creative Tech Lab. This doesn't look good, this looks super blown out, but that's because we need to do this. Much better. Now we could go from that to that. Oh, dial it in. That looks about right. If you haven't guessed yet, today we're talking about ND filters. Let's get into it. Yo, what up people, Leo here from Creative Tech Lab. Now a few months ago, the great folks over at Moment came out with this amazing product right here, a variable stop ND filter. Now if you remember about a year ago, that guy from up in Toronto teamed up with Polar Pro to make a variable stop ND filter as well. It was all the rave by all the YouTubers here on the platform. However, one of the biggest issues that most people brought up about this was the price. So again, the great folks over at Moment decided to try their hand at a variable stop ND filter at a much more competitive price. So we're gonna run down all that there. We're gonna run through the specs, the image quality, the build quality, all that stuff there, and if these are the best ND filters for the price. Now, quick disclaimer before we do get started, I do want to just let you guys know that the folks over at Moment did send these over to me to review. However, they didn't ask me to say anything. They didn't require me to make anything. So all the opinions are 100% my own. I've actually had these for a while. I actually intended to do this video a lot sooner. However, between bad weather and then of course lockdowns, I was not able to make the video that I intended. However, that has given me some more time with the filters, so now I can give you a little bit more in-depth review. So before we get into the nitty-gritty here, let's just talk about how they come. Packaging wise, they come in these cool little Moment cans right here. Looks cool with the all black and the matte black there, and it comes with a little microfiber cloth on the inside there. However, I have carried them around like this, but this is kind of hard to screw off for one, to keep screwing on and off, and then these do kind of get dinged up in the bag. I would prefer some kind of a soft case to carry them in there, so that's what I do there, just get a soft case and put the filters in there to carry around there. So nothing major on the packaging there, but that might also be how Moment's able to keep the price down on these. The filters themselves come in variable sizes there. On the website you could get them in 62, 67, 77, and 82 millimeter threads there. I have the 82 millimeter thread because my biggest lens, the Sigma 24-70, is a big 82 millimeter lens there. So I have one filter, and then I just use step down rings in order to step the filter down to the other sizes there. So whenever you get in a filter there, just get the biggest size and you can always step them down rather than buying multiple filters. Another thing of note that I think a lot of people miss there in terms of packaging and accessories that come with these, they don't come with any type of filter protection to protect the filter themselves. However, the folks over at Moment did not leave this out intentionally. They designed this particular filter to take a filter cap for whatever size thread this is. So in my case, I have an 82 millimeter cap there. This is a cap from the Sigma. If you just put it on there, boom, you have it there. So nothing extra. You should have a filter cap for whatever that is. I'll talk about the pros and cons of that later. I like it. It really is an ingenious design though. So just know that even though it doesn't come with a dedicated piece of accessory there to cover the filter, that you can use your lens cap to cover it there. Pretty cool. All right, now getting into the lens themselves there. The look and feel of these are awesome. They feel really good in the hand, and the build quality feels nice and sturdy there. Moment says that this is body machined from aerospace grade metal to withstand use, drops, and adventure. Aerospace grade metal, I don't know exactly what that means, but if it's good enough for astronauts, I would assume that it is good enough for your camera. No, but seriously, in terms of the feel, the look of it looks really cool. I know that's superficial, but that is something that we care about here. We're in a visual world, so we care about visuals. The red and black color contrast looks really cool, particularly on my A7 III with the red rim there. It matches the lenses perfectly. But this knurling is a nice knurling that's aggressive there for when you're screwing it on and off onto the camera, and then a less aggressive knurling here when you're turning it, and the smoothness of this feels really good there. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to change on you, but it's not too stiff for you to move it smoothly when it is that you're dialing in your exposure there. Now, one of the first things that you'll notice about this filter when it is that you're comparing it to some of the other offerings similar to it is it does have a much larger outer ring there. This is for a couple reasons. Moment says, obviously for one, it is easier to grip there. For two, they also intended it for you to be able to see the etchings on exactly what stops of ND that you are on and the back of the filter right there from behind the camera. And then third and lastly there, it also acts as like a mini lens hood to kind of cut down on the glare and the reflections that you're getting when you're out shooting in bright sunlight. So that's pretty cool there as well. So as you can see here, it has the markings back here, and I like the way that is laid out as well. Instead of having 2, 4, 5 stops there and to the exact stops there, this has the more traditional ND 4, 8, 16 and ND 32 there, so it has the actual ND markings. But just in case you need to ever match up your footage with your fixed stop NDs, you can kind of just do that just off the rip there by knowing exactly where you are. And then of course there, as I said, 2 to 5 stops there, and if you turn the ring there, hard stops on each side to stop you from getting the dreaded X pattern there. Now let's talk about what we really need to get to here is the image quality and why you'd even need an ND filter in the first place. So if we know our exposure triangle, which is our aperture, our shutter speed, and our ISO, we know we want to keep our ISO as low as possible to reduce any noise into our image. Our aperture, a lot of times we want to keep wide open in order to get that cinematic look there. And so our shutter speed is also set. This is particularly true for video shooters if we're observing the 180-degree rule, which means your shutter speed should be double your frame rate. So in this case, in shooting 24 frames per second, we'd have a shutter speed of 1/48 or 1/50, as close as you could get there, which means things outside, especially in bright sunlight, are going to be really, really bright. So if we want to keep that depth of field there, we need some other way to cut down the light, and that's where ND filters come in. But while you could just get any ND filter, all this is really important while putting some type of quality glass in front of your lens, which is all made of glass as well, and really quality glass, in order to not degrade your image that you would typically get out of your lens just to achieve the right exposure. And in terms of the glass that are in these particular filters, they are a German Scott B270 cinema grade type glass for superior optical quality is what they say on the website there. Usually these filters are made out of quartz, but Moment decided to do something different there to get a better image, and I tend to really like the image. All right, so enough with the specs there. Let's jump into the test shots here. Me and Tina went outside and she was my model, just to kind of show you what it looks like here with the background separation. You can take a look at the sharpness, the image quality, the color shifts, all that stuff there. So as we could see here, these first shots are on the Sony 85mm there, so this already has a lot of background compression. But if you're looking in the background here and we are completely exposed, properly exposed there, we could see that the background is completely blurred out there. You can't see the windows in that house or the tree or any of that stuff there. And then I just turned it as dark as possible just so you could see. Now it's a little bit underexposed at the end there. Brighten it back up just to see what it would look like there. And then just for reference there, this is what things would look like if I just tried to achieve the same exposure with just the change in the aperture there. So as you can see here, it's really overblown, and then I'm dialing things in there to kind of get the right aperture. And as you could see, the trees and the stuff in the background, even though this is on 85mm and it's still kind of compressed, you can see that becomes a lot more in focus in terms of the stuff in the background. If I put up a side by side here, you could see the big difference between this and this there in terms of stuff being more in focus there. I also did a second set of test shots there. So this is with the Sony 20mm G lens there, f1.8. These first shots here are with the filter. In the background there, you see the background is completely blurred out just to make it a little bit darker, to show you how dark things get there on the edges. Perfect exposure there. We have great bokeh in the background. Even with a wider angle lens there, and typically things are more in focus with a wider angle lens, but we see we're still able to get nice background separation there. And then same thing here, I just did a test shot. This is without the filter. And as you can see, as we change the aperture ring there, everything in the background, those trees, the windows in the background behind her face, becomes a lot more in focus there. So it doesn't give you as cinematic as a look there. The other concern that a lot of people have with ND filters are two things. You have the cross polarization of the dreaded X from most typical ND filters. You don't have any of that here with this ND filter because it has the hard stops on both the 2 and the 5 ends, or the 6 and the 9 end of the stops there. So they're full on hard stops there, so you never ever run into that in terms of getting an X pattern. However, because of the same cross polarization effect, sometimes you get darker edges, particularly on a wide angle lens. So I did some other test shots here just real quick in the backyard. At 17 millimeters is my widest angle lens there, and you do see as you darken the image up a little bit, just on the edging in the top corners up by the tree, or if you see the sky over here or the grass down in the edges there, at 17 millimeters it does start to get a little bit dark there on the edges, but nothing major. Darkened it all the way up right here, and you can see a little bit there. But if I went up to 24 millimeters, that becomes a lot less pronounced on the edges, and then once you get up to 28 millimeters or so, that kind of goes away altogether. And if you looked at the test shots that I did there with Tina and her face there on the 85 millimeter, you weren't really seeing any of the dark edges there. So a couple other things you always want to be aware of when you're getting an ND filter is going to be how it affects your color shifting and your image sharpness there. I've noticed no major degradation of the image using this here. My image still looks tacked sharp. And in terms of color shift, there's always going to be a slight color shift there with any ND filter when you're putting glass in front of your glass there. However, this is not anything that's noticeable in my images there when it is that I bring it into Final Cut and need to color grade it or color correct it there. So these are really awesome here. Let's just talk about the one or two cons that I have about this particular lens here. The one thing is that even though I mentioned here that they did build it with the bigger lens cap so you could see the etchings from behind the lens there, just know that every lens trend is a little bit different in the amount of turns that you have to make. So sometimes it may end up in the perfect spot where you could see it from the top there, but other times it kind of ends up on the bottom and you kind of have to peek under. Not something that was in their control because every lens company makes it different there, but that's one thing to know. And then the only other thing I would say is the lens hood being kind of big. Sometimes when you're putting it in and out of a bag and you taking it out of the quick release side pocket there, sometimes that can become a little problematic. And then lastly, not having a dedicated lens hood, even though they thought of making the lens hood for whatever size it is. If I'm not out with my Sigma, the lens hood might be on the Sigma, and then if I'm using step down rings, I don't have another filter size to put on here, so it would require me to get a separate accessory to cover the filter as I'm putting it in and out there. But those are very, very minor things. Overall, I think this is an amazing product. This is one of Moment's first non-mobile products there for smartphone, and they really hit it out the park. Is it the best ND filter for the price? I'm not sure. Freewell does have something out as well that is a little bit cheaper and is really competitive as well. I really like the feel of these though compared to the Freewells. Look out for that comparison coming sometime soon between this and the Freewells as well as the Polar Pros there. So this will be the first in the series of that, but I think at this price point I can more than recommend it, and I think a lot of people will like this. So you definitely won't be disappointed using these here. They're an amazing product. You get amazing image quality out of it, and I can definitely recommend it. If you do want to check them out, links down below. Those are affiliate links. They do help the channel and it doesn't cost you anything, so I'd appreciate that. And then yeah, like I said, we do have some more ND filters and some more comparisons coming for this particular filter as well as some others. So hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button so you don't miss out on those, and I will catch you in the next video. Big up yourself. Peace.